session coming thereby. We are going to be discussing on the importance of sustainability, which cannot be undermined. And it's time that we acknowledge the connections between the environment, the economy, and the society. The session is going to take you to the blueprint developed by the UN to achieve a better and a more sustainable future for all. To be able to do the deliverables for this, I would like to invite our distinguished panelists for this session. May I now take this opportunity to invite our respected CA, Chitale sir, past president, ICAI, on the dais, please. Can we put our hands together to welcome sir here? May I also take this opportunity to invite our honorable guest for the session, Ms. Teresa Jacobs, Executive Director, Learning from International Skill Development Corporation. Let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome the distinguished panelists here. Thank you so much with your presence. And at the onset now, for the theme, may I now request Ms. Teresa Jacobs, Executive Director, Learning from International Skill Development Corporation, to kindly address the session.
Good morning, one and all. Welcome to the session. I'm going to do something that I don't very often do when making a speech. But I'm actually going to say that this is not going to be the most riveting or the most innovative or the most amazing talk where you will learn lots of new things. We are in fact talking about sustainability. My starting point is 2016 with the inauguration of the UN Sustainability Goals, so already a little bit of history. But I think the main point that I would like to make is to thank the World Conference for Accountants for actually raising the issue again that is not new and will not go away, and therefore nothing new to say about sustainability, but it has to stay on our agenda. And while we all think about our day jobs, I am here to give you perhaps what we don't necessarily need, but a solid reminder that this is not going to go away. So I'm going to start with slightly before 2016, and to make a confession to you that although I'm not an accountant myself, I was heavily involved with one of the international accountancy bodies, and I am aware that the many and numerous accountants among you do not practice your profession without doing a very, very large number of serious examinations. And my particular involvement was with an international body for accountancy exams. Early in my career, I visited an aeroplane hangar. And inside that aeroplane hangar were thousands upon thousands upon thousands of exam scripts and exam papers, and boxes in which they were contained, and plastic bags in which those exam scripts had been sent to the centres. And my thought was, we will have to do this better. In a very, very small way, the accountancy profession, with all those esteemed people who take the exams, we can do this better. And I'm very proud to say that all of those exam papers were promptly abolished. The examinations for most of the accountancy bodies, at least in the UK, the US, Australia based, are 100% now e-assessment. And not only do we save all the paper, but also the carbon footprint of the aeroplanes and the lorries that took those assessment papers. Now, we may be thinking that's a very small thing. It's a drop in the ocean. But actually, I think as we go through this session, we will see that actually it's almost a drop in the ocean, but it's also the elephant in the room. Do I have an elephant? Yes. So I found this picture just as I was leaving the UK on Saturday, and it cheered me up to see that the elephant in the room. And it reminds me that I'm a frequent visitor, as it happens, to India, that Heathrow Airport in the UK is now addressing the elephant at the airport. But actually, I had the huge pleasure of a behind-the-scenes tour with a group of students I was hosting from the UK who visited Cochin Airport. And for those of you that are not completely familiar with Cochin Airport, be very, very proud. I believe it is the world's first sustainable airport. So, well done, you are ahead. Now, strangely, in that visit back in July to the Cochin Airport and thereabouts, I found myself escaping the heat wave in the UK. Very, very perverse and very shattering, really, to find that I was actually cooler in the pleasant climate in Bangalore than I would be in the UK. Global warming was very much there. When I came back, we had the awful news of the flooding in Pakistan, while meanwhile, Africa had practically dried up and with a drought. Coming up in the news thereafter, what I saw was that, yes, the heat wave in the UK had very much put the elephant back in the room, or in this case, the elephant back onto the agenda. And I witnessed the protests on the M25. For those of you familiar with the UK, that is actually the ring road around London, the peripheral ring road, and there were protesters looking to hold up to protest against use of oil. Tongue-in-cheek, some of the distractors actually mentioned that in fact it didn't make much difference because the M25 is sometimes a very large car park anyway. But we see there that the mood had changed in the UK and it had become a controversy. We began to discuss, should we be sympathetic? Do these protesters have the right to stop you in your car getting to your important meeting, to disrupt your life about something like the climate? So we're torn between, are we sympathetic? They've just messed up my appointment. Or is this really the only way we can that we can be empowered? Do we want to stick our head in the sand and say, I want to go to my appointment? Or are we kind of, I just want to drive to work in peace? Just yesterday's news was about a protest in Gordon Ramsay's very famous restaurant in London, where animal rights protesters came in and were showing aspects of the impact of meat in the food chain, and protesting in that way. So once again, India, I would like to give you a big compliment, because I've been a vegetarian all my life. I'm not going to preach to you. I am in no way preaching, but I have to say, when I come to India and I see a menu that is full of things that I can eat, you've got it. You've got it. So I applaud that. Now, back in the UK, of course, the sustainability agenda is competing with the pound, which, as we all know, as per her promise, Liz Truss really did hit the ground, sorry, hit the pound, not the ground, the pound. Liz Truss really hit the pound. And we sort of have a debate with our new Prime Minister that some of you may be very proud of. And really, you know, actually, Rishi Sunak's got a few things to do with the devastated pound. Should he really be going to Egypt to COP27 and talking about climate change? Come on, the price of butter's gone up. The price of eggs has gone up. Why is Rishi Sunak talking about climate change? Well, thank goodness he did. You know, the bleating headlines were ignored, and Rishi did go to Egypt. And it's absolutely amazing to see that we have just the beginning of an emergence of an understanding that the rich nations really do have a duty of care to the poorer nations to ensure that those poorer nations who are actually suffering because of richer nations, and there may be something will come out of that. Yep. So I think, you know, we all have that understanding. That also happened at the same time as we had the declaration of the 8th billionth birth on the planet, coupled with the debate of whether actually the solution is, can the world sustain this ever-increasing population? So nothing really new here. Nothing new here. We're addressing the elephant in the room. We can protest in the UK and we can try to change, or we can put our heads firmly in the sand. But I'm minded of the responsibility debate, and I will actually go right back to the beginning of this very short talk, that at the time when I very passionately removed all of the examination papers from this operation with the accountancy body, it was, well, it's not a very big thing, is it? And you probably did it to save money. Well, maybe we did, but actually that's the beautiful thing, that often sustainability does save us money. But I think really the most important thing is it takes me back to your esteemed Prime Minister, the esteemed Dr. Modi, who was now very recently with the Life, by that the Lifestyle for Environment, very recently launched, that actually very much does tie in with the responsibility of absolutely everybody just to do their bit. So for all those companies who have banned plastic bottles, or all of those companies that now regularly recycle their rubbish and sort their rubbish, you know, that is the most that we can do. Yep. And that is, I think, that we can all do our little bit, and if everybody does their little bit, well, I'm a huge optimist, but there we are. And we should think about that we do not inherit the world from our ancestors. We are borrowing it from our children. So let us all, in our very small way, give back to our children. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was indeed wonderful to look at the way that you've been able to deliberate further on this theme, that we are working in towards enabling sustainability for a bigger and a better future, and how we really need to address the big elephant in the room. Thank you so much. It was indeed wonderful hearing from you. Let's have a big round of applause, please. And I will now take this opportunity to invite CA Chitale sir, past President ICAI, to kindly come and deliver the address.
Namaskar. It is nice to be speaking to the World Congress of Accountants, where representatives from different countries are attending. The word sustainability has been heard for last 3 days. Today, I think, is the 4th day. The whole conference is on building trust and reaching towards sustainability. Next slide, please. Next. I just thought of putting few thoughts together when we go to sustainability, maybe few blocks that are necessary, and then go to the basic subject of why sustainability. The environment, social and governance, this ESG, which is being talked about naturally in our country as well as other countries, these would be the 3 pillars of sustainability. How do we sustain ourselves over a period of time would be the basics of our existence. All of us exist today with our present needs. The question is, do we balance our present needs with what we need tomorrow? One at the individual level, then at the corporate level, and then at the national level. I think this will be the next block that is necessary, balancing of needs between the present and the future generations. Since the topic has been talked about for a long time, it has naturally created the awareness amongst all of us and awakening that the subject is absolutely necessary for our existence. The next block is that we need to keep in mind that we need to satisfy not only human beings but all mortals. And I purposely use the word mortals so that we take care of not human beings alone, but all those who exist in the world who come and leave this world. Do we really feel that prosperity is the end of the journey? And sustainability tells us that no, happiness is beyond the prosperity. Now on this, I'll come slightly later. The next part is the corporates naturally have their objectives. The human beings have their objectives. Under the banner of sustainability, how do we really achieve integration of the aims and objectives of corporates and human beings will be the goal for us. In any society, the human beings exist with different aspects of life. Those are economic, social, humanitarian, and religion. I think the point will be, do we have a cohesive approach in all the needs and aspirations on this matter? Considering this, what was felt was that there is a need for sustainability reporting standards. And I think that's what gave rise to and birth to sustainability reporting standards. Now with that, let's move on to the next slide. I just thought of identifying a global baseline for these standards. And that's where I could lay my hands on a saint and a philosopher, Arya Chanakya, who has laid down many sutras, we call them shlokas, and one of them aptly describes what is the objective of sustainability. The objective of sustainability is the happiness, and that's where it starts by saying, Sukhasya moolam dharmaha, dharmasya moolam artha, arthasya moolam rajya, rajya moolam indriya jayaha. To make it better understood in current world, what it starts saying is, dharma is the nucleus of happiness. The moment the word dharma is used, many eyebrows are raised, but this is where we use dharma from completely a different angle. And since I'm talking in the Conference of Accountants, I would say ethics and commitment to duty is our dharma. Now, as long as we do this properly, the happiness is bound to come. Maybe sometimes it takes longer time, but I think all of us need to keep this in mind, that our dharma is ethics and commitment to duty. Generally, in a society at large, the word artha, that is prosperity, is rarely talked about. But it is Arya Chanakya who laid down long time back that the core of dharma is artha or wealth. which means for us to be committed to our things, dharma, it is necessary to have the artha, that is the prosperity, and that is the basic aspect of life. Then he goes on to say that the stability of the state is the precondition of artha. When he laid down this, artha and state, naturally there were kingdoms which were existing. In today's world, there are no kingdoms. Naturally, we are democratically elected governments, but what it really means is we need stable governments so as to promote proper prosperity, which in a way will promote the happiness. And then it goes on to lay down the fundamental principle: the primary duty of the rulers is to be in command over senses and emotions. Now, this is one sentence which one can read from different angles. Let me try to read it from our own perceptions as accountants, being a part of maybe IFAC, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, or any other body in the world. Those of us who sit as rulers, and by rulers we mean those who take decisions, what is necessary? And the rule or the sutra very clearly says, you must be very clearly aware of the senses and emotions of the people you govern. The expression of thoughts from the top to bottom is always communicated, but the expression of needs and aspirations from the bottom to the top is something which we need to understand. And I think that's what this sutra tells us very clearly. Now, taking this why of happiness, let me try and touch upon sustainable standards and my few thoughts on some of these aspects. I think whenever we lay down standards, it is absolutely necessary that we must have emotional ownership of standards. And it is the society which should have the emotional ownership. Who lays down standards will not be important. Whether the standards are accepted by the society will become important. Otherwise, the standards will lose their existence itself. And in all the standards, ethics is absolutely fundamental. While we talk of sustainability, we'll have to remember that the business objectives may not necessarily match with the objectives of sustainability standards. But one need not worry about that. The businesses and the human beings will have to adapt themselves to the standards of sustainability. One thought which comes to the mind once we talk about standards is any amount of constant changes in the standards is never good in the long run. It takes time for the society at large to understand standards, implement them, and put them to practice. And if we keep on bringing newer versions every 1 or 2 years, the standards lose their credibility. And the most important is, while we lay down standards, we must keep in mind what is necessary for the society can only continue to exist in the society. So what are those expectations? And I think it is the expectations which we must keep in mind. And this is where we need to say that it is the accounting which will lead to accountability. And if we have proper accountability, that is what will lead to credibility. Now, this is the motto that we will have to keep in mind in case we wish to present ourselves as those who lay down sustainability standards and help the society at large to implement those standards. With this, now let me come to the last part of my presentation. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is always the fundamental thing in our country, and that's why we adopted one earth, one family, one future as our goal. Let me have one request to all the participants. Let's decide that we will always do quality work. And the word quality does not mean what looks good. It means what lasts longer. It does not mean what looks good. It does not mean what tastes good. But it means that is something which takes us for a longer period. And a thought or a suggestion, always be either a mentor or a mentee. And if possible, continue to be always a mentor and a mentee. At whatever stage of life, you are bound to be a mentor to somebody, but always remember that you also need to be a mentee of somebody so that the learning process never ends. All of us comes to seminars, conferences, and listen to various thoughts. But let me just try and end something with a general thought. We should normally think that aspect which we can speak easily, and we should speak something which we are willing to sign our name below that talking. Being a conference in India, let me try and use the national language Hindi to some extent. सोचो वही जो बेहिचक बोल सको, सोचो वही जो बेहिचक बोल सको, बोलो वही जिसके नीचे हस्ताक्षर कर सको. Let us all resolve that the Conference of Chartered Accountants, meeting in large numbers, we not only talk about sustainability standards, but we will ensure that we will make all our efforts to put the standards in practice. We will stand by it, will communicate to the society at large the needs of these standards, and we will support all the functions of the society to implement it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. What an honor to hear from you on the theme for the day today, enabling sustainability for a better future. And how beautifully you've been able to sum up the entire theme that we really need a cohesive approach to align the economic, social, humanitarian, and religious aspects of life. Let's give a big round of applause for Sir, please. And now, as a token of our gratitude and immense appreciation, I would now like to take this opportunity to invite our respected CA Anuj Goyal, sir, to kindly come up on the dais to present a memento to our Honorable CA Chitale, sir, past President, ICAI. Let's put our hands together, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Anuj sir, for gracious presence here. Now I would like to request our respected CA, Dheeraj Kumar Khandelwal, on the dais, please, to present a memento to our distinguished guest for the day, Ms. Teresa Jacobs. Let's put our hands together once again, everyone. And while the group picture is being taken, let's give them a bigger round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much once again.